Async storage is a way for you to store data offline in your app. So when you restart your app, the data is still available to you. So if you know Android development, it's similar to shared preferences in Android. So let's look at what we have here. We have a settings screen here, and I just created a mock settings screen with a few different options for notifications, theme color, and age. And there's a button here to restore the defaults. So right now, this doesn't really do anything except set the state locally for the screen. So in the package.json, I have added the async storage package, and I've added the slider package. So these two packages are going to be used for this video. Let's look at the documentation for these real quick. So for the async storage, it lets you set the item using a storage key and a value, and it lets you read a value using the storage key. So keep in mind that this is asynchronous. So when you do this, you need to wait for the item to get set and retrieved. So that's important to know for your app. And if we look at the slider package here, you can see that it's just a basic slider for your app. They took it out of the default React Native library and they put it into a separate community repo here. And I've already installed this, and you can see here that there's just a few different props here that you can use. We're going to focus on mostly these here, but there's more. You can change the tint color, thumb image, etc. Let's go back to the app. First, we're going to actually go to our home page. I'm going to walk through this a little bit to show you what's going on. We have our state here with show notifications and age for these two. This option I'm going to set in a different fashion for the theme color. I'm going to set the colors on the screen based on this theme color. So as you push red, green, purple, or blue, you'll see a lot of the components change their color based on this. So we have an array of buttons, and I'm using a button group from the React Native Elements library. And you can see that this UI library has a lot of different options here, but for the button group, it takes in an array of components. So in this case, they're using text here, and you have to name the objects with the word element here. So if your button group is not working, that might be the reason why. So don't forget to use this word here, element. And then you have your onPress, selected index, your buttons that are your components, and your container style here for your button group style. Okay, so let's go back to the app here, and I'm going to go through this real quick. So we have our switch, and our switch is part of the React Native library. I just have a style here, and I'm setting the value. The value is either true or false. So this is true, this is false. And you can see you can go back and forth. So I'm going to hide this yellow warning here for this video. So I'm just going to put a line of code probably right here to hide the yellow box. So let's save. Okay. We have our value here, which is either true or false, and we have on value change. So this is either true or false. So when we switch it, this becomes true, and now it's false. And you can see that we're logging that here. So, and we're also setting the state. So that applies to this value here. And then we have a lot of styling for our cards. The card is also from React Native Elements. I didn't really change the styling that much for the cards. This is basically how it would look, but I'm setting some of the margins and the alignment here for the cards. So we have a slider here that I mentioned before, and we have the style here. The minimum value is 18, the maximum value is 65. And we have a step value of 1, so each of these represents one step. And I'm setting the initial value to 18. And then when we change the value, I'm doing this dot set state age, so I'm setting the age state. Okay? And we can actually change this to this dot set or this dot state dot age here. Okay, so now the value is actually being set based on the state. Okay, and we have our button here, which are with our styling. This is the button from React Native Elements. So we have our container style, our button style, and we have our title here. Okay, and this is all of our styling here. You can see it all in the repo if you want to. So now let's import the async package here. So let's do import async storage from async storage. Okay, and now I want to create a few different constants for our keys. Above our class component here, I want to create some constants. So constant I'm going to say show notifications, and I'm going to just name that to be notifications. Then I'm going to say constant theme color, do key, and I'm just going to call that theme underscore color. And I'm going to say constant, and let's call this age key. Let's be consistent, use key here too. So key, and then I'm just going to call that just age. It doesn't really matter what you call these as long as it's consistent throughout your app. So now I want to create a function, or actually 3 different functions to save our state to the storage. So I'm going to go down here above our render, and I'm going to create 3 different functions. One is going to be store notifications. This is going to be asynchronous, so it equals async. I'm going to pass in a key value, and I'm going to pass in a Boolean, which is going to be the actual value. So let's just name it show notifications. And I'm naming this a certain way, which you'll see later, but we'll come back to that. And let's do the arrow. So now I want to write the same format that you see in the docs. I'm just going to copy and paste this and put it into here. And now I'm going to set the key to be the show notifications key, and the value will be this value here. Okay, and we could just do a console.log e here. And after we set the item in the storage here, I also want to set the state at the same time. So if this is successful, then I want to set the local state of our value here. So I want to do this.setState and then show notifications. And that's why I named these 2 values the same, the local state here and this value here, because I want to do the shortcut for the set state line. Okay, so let's copy and paste this 2 more times. And I want to do a function called store theme colors. And we have a key here, and I'm going to pass in a theme index. Okay, and now I want to have the key be the theme color key. So theme color key. Okay, and this will be, let's call it theme index. And we'll set the state a little bit different in this case. So let's get rid of this and come back to this later. So this one will be store age. So store age, we have key here, and then we have age for our local state. So age, and then we have the age key. We pass in the age value, and we can have age for our state here. Let's actually handle this now since we're here. So for the theme color here, I want the navigator to be aware of our color. So I want to set the state in our navigator object. And you'll see why we do this later in the video. Let's do this dot props dot navigation. So we have access to this navigation object because it's part of our navigator stack here, or our stack navigator here. All of these have access to this dot props dot navigator, or navigation, I mean. So this dot props dot navigation dot set params is how you set the state in the navigator. I want to set it as theme index. So theme index. When we get that value from the navigator, it'll be this name here. So if you're not familiar with React navigation, please look at my video that I did on using React navigation. So it walks you through a little bit of this stuff too. Okay, so now we are setting the item in a sync. So now we have the functions to set the items in a sync storage and also set the local state and set the state of our navigation object. Okay, so now I want to create a function to restore the defaults when we push this button here. So I'm going to create a function called restore defaults. And we're not going to pass anything into here. We are going to just call these 3 functions with specific values. So we're going to say this dot show notifications, and we're going to pass in our show notifications key. And then we're going to pass in what value we want to have as the default, and it will be, in our case, it'll be false. And then we have this dot store theme colors, and then we have our theme color key. And for this, I want that to be 0, so it'll be blue by default. Okay, and this dot store age, and we have our age key, and that I want to be 18 by default. Okay, so let's work on our switch first. So let's go down to our switch here, and we have our on value change. So now we can get rid of this line because we are setting our state after we store it. So now I want to call this dot store notifications, and we'll pass in our key, and we'll pass in the value that we have here. So show notifications. Okay, and that's it. So let's go down to the age and do that one first. So we can get rid of this one, and let's do this dot store age. We have our age key, and we can pass in the age value. Okay, pretty simple so far. So the button group is a little bit more tricky because we're setting the navigator or the navigation state. I want to actually go up here to our render at the top, and let's create a constant called theme color index. So constant theme color index, and I want this to be equal to the state index that we have in our navigation state. So I want to say equals this dot props dot navigation, and then to get our state from our navigation we say dot state and then dot params. Okay, and then I want to have a ternary operation here. So if this exists, so this only exists if we actually set it. So if we don't set it, then this doesn't exist. So question mark this dot props dot navigation dot state dot params, and then we are assuming that we have our theme index here for this app. So theme index, or we just set it to 0. Okay, so if this is not set, then we set it to 0 by default. So it'll be blue by default. And now let's go down to our button group. So there's going to be a few different parameters in here that are based on that value that we just created. There will be some props in here that are based on that theme index value. So let's go to the button group docs here, and you can see we have selected index. So let's create that now. So we have selected index. This will just be set to that value, so theme index. Okay. And I also want the button to be highlighted a certain color when we actually select it. So when we press blue, I want this to be blue. When we select green, I want this to be highlighted green. When we select red, I want this to be highlighted red, etc. There's a style for that for the button group. I want to say selected button style. That's a prop that's in the button group component equals. And then I want to set the background color similar to what we do up here for the button style. So background color. And I want this to be equal to one of these 4 values. So this is why I named these lowercase blue, green, red, purple. If you don't do it this way, then you need to figure out a way to map these values to certain colors that you want in your app. But I'm doing this because it's the easier way for this video. Okay, so now we have our background color, and let's do this dot colors. So we get that array, and we use the theme index as the index. So we have theme, I named it theme color index, theme color index. Okay, and this should actually be theme color index too. Let's make sure that these are correct. Okay. And the last thing I want to do is implement our onPress function. So let's do onPress. And the onPress value for this one would be either 0, 1, 2, or 3. So let's just call it theme index here. And for this, we're going to store our value in the async storage. So we could say this dot store theme colors. And then we could pass in our theme color key. And then we just pass in that theme index value. So theme index. Okay, so the background color of this should match one of these colors here. So it should be blue, green, red, or purple for the selected button style here. Okay, so let's actually save this. And now you can see that it's blue here by default because our default value is 0 in our case, as you can see here. Okay, so let's select green. Okay, so I kept this error in here for a reason because this is something that you will see if you don't do something specific that is not mentioned in the docs very clearly. When you set your storage values, you need to set these as a JSON encoded string value. For our store notifications here, you need to actually stringify this value. So no matter if it's a Boolean, an int, or a string, you need to do, let's actually just get rid of this and just do JSON.stringify and show notifications. So this is something that you need to remember to do. Don't forget, because it will not work if you do not stringify the value first. So it's not very obvious on the screen here, but if you go to some of the examples, so you can see here stringified. You can see JSON.stringify here. So you need to dig a little bit deeper into the docs to see that you need to stringify the values first. Okay, so let's go back to the app here and let's do copy paste for this. Put it into here, parentheses, put it into here, parentheses. Okay, so let's see what happens when we try to press this again. Now you can see this was highlighted green, red, purple. Okay, so this is a good start to our settings screen here. So our async values are being set and our state is being set locally. So now I want to create some methods to get our data from our async storage. So we have our storage functions here. Let's create a way to get our data. So I'm actually going to create this in one single function because we don't have a reason to get a single value for the screen. If you're trying to retrieve values throughout your entire app, you might want to create separate functions, but for this case, we don't really need to. So let's create a function called load async data. And for this, we're just going to actually do a lot of try-catch blocks. Let's go to the docs here, and I just want to copy and paste this. Let's do console.log e. And then for this, first I want to get the show notifications. And this will be from the same key. So show notifications key. And then for this, I want to say set the state based on this value here. So this dot set state and show notifications. But in this case, since we have a JSON stringified key, I want to parse that back into the value that we expect it to be. In this case, we need a Boolean, but this is not a Boolean. This will be a string value. So it'll be like a string false or string true. So for this case, I want to do colon and do JSON.parse. So the parse is how you unpack that value into the type that you expect. So JSON.parse show notifications. Okay, I hope that makes sense so far. That's just a little bit of a hassle that you have to do with this library, but it's not really too bad. You just need to remember to stringify your values and parse them back when you want to retrieve them. Okay, then let's copy and paste this 2 more times. And for this one, I want this to say theme color index and theme color key. And then for this one, it'll be theme color index, I think is what I have it. So let's check it out here. Set item, theme color key. And remember for this one, we set the state of our navigation object, not the local state here. So let's get rid of this here. And I want to say this dot props dot navigation dot set params and then theme index is what we call it. Let's make sure that we set it the same here. Theme index. So theme index. And then we do JSON.parse. And we do theme color index. And for our age is pretty simple. We just do age. Oh yeah, let's not forget to change this here. So theme color key. Okay, it's age. We have age key. We have age and age. Okay. Okay, now I want to call this value when the component first loads. And I want to do that from the component did mount function. So component did mount, and then I want to call this dot load async data. Okay, I can't put this block of code inside of this component did mount because you cannot have asynchronous code in your component did mount lifecycle here. And I'm going to do something else for our component did mount. I'm going to pass the colors array to our navigation object. And you'll see why I do this in a minute. So let's do this dot props dot navigation dot set params. And I'm just going to pass that in as colors, this dot colors. So I want this to be shared with our component itself and our navigation object. Okay, and we save, and we get an error here, await outside an async function. Okay, so this should be async here. Save. Okay, everything works okay now. And let's actually add that restore value to our button here. So we have restore defaults. Let's go to our button and do on press equals this dot restore defaults. Okay, so let's see what happens when we press this button now. This dot show notifications is not a function. Let's see where we have this at. This dot show store notifications. Okay, store notification. Okay, let's save. And let's press these buttons here. You can see it's highlighted. Let's press the restore defaults button. And you can see it went back to blue. Let's change these two. Let's press the button. And you can see everything went back to the defaults here. So that's a good step for our settings here. Now let's focus on changing the navigator app bar here when we press the theme color button. So let's go up to our component at the top. And I'm going to add some navigation options. So you do this with the name navigation options. So you do static. This is all part of the React navigation library too. So static navigation options equals, and then we're going to get the navigation object from this value. Okay. And now let's actually just log this just in case. So console.log navigation, and then we're going to get the params from that object. So we do constant navigation, call it params equals navigation.state.params. So I'm doing this so I don't have to type this out a lot. .params. Okay, and then we want to return something here. So we return the different options that we want. So for the title settings, and I want to have a header tint color. So let's do header tint color. So for now, let's just have it be black so we can test it. So black, and let's reload. So now you can see we have settings up here. Let's take care of this warning here too. So can't find variable value. Oh yeah, we need to change this to be the constant here. So let's change these. Okay. And let's change the header style now. So we have something called header style in our navigation options. And for this, I want to set the background color to be a certain color. So let's test it real quick by saying red. We have to reload. So we have red here now. So now I want to set this color based on these values here. So it'll either be blue, green, red, or purple. So this is the reason why I passed in the colors array to this navigation object here. So if we have navigation params, so that means if our state was set, then I want to show that color. So I want a ternary operation again. So I want to say if navigation params, so question mark, then I want to say navigation params dot colors, because remember we passed that in, so set params. So here you can see we passed in the colors here, the colors array here. So that's what this is here, navigation params dot colors. And then we have this array here, and I want this to be based on the navigation params. Let's put this on a different line, and it'll be dot theme index, because we're passing in the theme index too. So let's double check where we're setting this at. So let's do set params, setting it here, so theme index. So when we change this button group here, we're setting the theme index in our navigation state. So that's what this is up here. Okay. Else, we just want to set the title to, or the header to be, let's say black, and let's set the tint color to white, so we can be sure that this is actually working. Okay, and let's save and reload. So now you can see that our header color matches the theme color here. So let's try to press one of these other buttons. So let's do red, and you can see it changed, purple, blue, green. Okay, so that looks great. This is a good step in the right direction, and we're almost done. So now let's work on the switch color here. So you can see here, this doesn't change when we change the theme color, but I want this color here to be the same as our theme color. So let's go down to our switch here. So the switch component has a prop called track color. So you can say track color, you can see it here. And that'll be this color here. So I want to set this equal to a certain color, but you have to pass in another value here, which is whether you want to set the true color or the false color. See, so this is the true color and this is the false color. So the true color should match the theme color. First say true, and then we set the color based on that. So we say this dot colors, and that'll be from our theme color index, I think it is. Yeah, theme color index. Okay, so let's save. Define, it's not an object. We are missing something here. This dot colors. Okay, and now you can see that this is red now. Let's change it to green, blue, purple. Okay, so that looks great so far. So now let's work on our slider here. Let's go down to our slider. I want this color to be the same as our theme color. So let's go to the slider docs, and we have a max track tint color and min track tint color. I want the minimum track tint color to be set. So let's copy this and let's put that here. And we're going to do the same thing and say this dot colors and do theme color index. Okay, let's save. And now you can see that it's purple. So change this, and now you can see that these colors are all lined up to be the same as our theme color. So let's actually do the same for the button. That's pretty easy. We can just put a style in here. So I put the style in line here because I want this to be based on a certain condition. And it's harder to do that here in the style sheet, in a separate style sheet component. So let's put it here. Let's do background color. And it'll be the exact same syntax here. So this dot colors, this dot colors, and then we can say theme color index. Let's save. Okay, everything just works. This is a great visual look to your app. It makes things look very consistent and thought out. So let's see what happens if we restart the app with with certain values. Let's do this and true. Let's restart. And you can see that our values are still the same. So let's do a couple more tests here. Let's press restore defaults. And you can see everything went back to the default values. So default will be blue, so our button is blue too, and our track color is blue. Let's reload again. Let's press restore defaults, and now let's reload. And everything is the same. So yeah, I hope this makes sense. And this is a great way to use settings in your app. If you're trying to have some settings that are persistent throughout your entire app, even when the user restarts, then this is a great way to use it. Async storage is pretty easy. There's different options that you can use too. So you can go to the docs here. You can go to more examples in this link, and you can see there's merge item, remove item, get all keys, clear. I didn't do clear because clears the values, but I wanted to restore the values to the default ones, not clear the values. So if you clear the values, then you need to make sure that those keys exist first before you get them. So yeah, I'm not really using any of these other ones yet. So this is using hooks. If you use hooks, then use async storage might be good to use, but you can see it's not actually complete yet. They're still experimenting with it, so be careful with that. Merge is pretty easy. I didn't want to go over merge because that's not something that you'll probably use too often. You'll probably use just set item and get item 99% of the time. So focus on those. So yeah, I hope this video helped you out and gets you started with creating a settings screen in your app. So yeah, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe if you want to be notified of more videos in the future. So thank you for watching and happy coding. Bye.